Hi, I'm Kelly and welcome to Kapowski Reads, and this is my May TBR. In order to determine my TBR, I play my TBR game, and I will pop a link in the description for my January rules. I do explain the rules a little bit. Well, I explain the rules in that video, but basically I roll the dice, I move, I pick a book according to the prompt that I land on. It's pretty much that. I do always start my TBR with either a treat or not a penalty, but based on whether I did or did not finish my TBR for the previous month, I will be reading either the highest rated book on my Goodreads TBR or the lowest. And I will have finished my April TBR by the end of April. I'm filming this a week before the end of the month, and I have only got 2 books that are as yet unfinished, and I'm over halfway through each of those books, and I see hopefully no reason why I shouldn't get those finished. So let's go off that assumption. If for any reason I don't manage to get those done, then I will revise my TBR and pick from the lowest. But for now, we're just gonna be hopeful that I'll get them done, because I think I will. The highest rated book on my TBR this exact moment in time is a non-fiction, and I'm in my non-fiction era. I'm really getting into reading some really exciting non-fiction. Yeah, so the book is Reach for the Stars by Michael Cragg, who is I believe a music journalist. This is about pop music between the years of 1996 and 2006. So for me, that is, peak school disco and early university life era. So I'm very excited to read this, because I think I'm going to at least have some warm and fuzzy feelings towards the majority of the bands featured in this book. I'm really excited to read this. I think it's going to be sort of nostalgic and kind of just a little bit of a trip down memory lane. And also it's quite nice to see, are those bands okay? Or are the people that were popular when I was young, are they doing okay? I kind of hope they are. I'm excited about this. It is a chunky book though. It is over 500 pages, and this month has not been a good reading month for me so far. I have been struggling, so I don't know how I feel starting with a 500 pager, but I mean, what can I do? 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yellow. Set in our world. Roll 1 was a yellow prompt, a book that is set in our world. I've decided to pick a book that ticks off Kayla's buzzword for May, which is flavors. And I'm going with The Honeys by Ryan LaSala, because honey is a flavor. I don't like the taste of honey, but it's still a flavor nonetheless. I think I'm gonna just love this book. It seems like the kind of book I would adore. This is about a gender fluid young person called Mars who had a really tight relationship with their sister. And unfortunately, Mars was excluded from their school due to their gender fluidity. After the death of their sister, Mars is insistent on going back to the school in their sister's place. While at the school, Mars is drawn to their sister's friends, who are called the Honeys. I am a sucker for I don't know if they're an evil girl gang, but let's just say they are, because that's what in my heart I want them to be. And while at the school, Mars sort of delves into the Honeys because there's something creepy about them, which is creepy girl gang. Love it. Creepy and evil, ideally. So yeah, I'm just really excited to read this. I think I'm gonna just absolutely love it. I love what it seems like it's gonna be giving me, and I have previously listened to the author's podcast where they talk about books that are interesting. So I think I'm gonna love it, and I know I do enjoy the author generally, so fingers crossed. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Green. Food or drink on the cover. Roll 2 was a green prompt, and that was a book with food or drink on the cover. And when I made these prompts, I had so many books that had food or drink on the cover, like cocktail glasses, champagne. Like, yeah, I'm sure I did, because why else would I have made this prompt? But when I was trying to find a book, I only had one fiction book which had a picture of a cake on it, and I just didn't feel like reading that book. So I looked to my non-fiction shelf, and lo and behold, I found a book there, and it's a book that I had been planning to read, I think last year, but I actually think I'm talking nonsense and it might have been the year before. This book has been on my to read immediately list for a while, and that book is The Instafood Diet by Pixie Turner. And this book is basically about how social media has kind of had an impact on the way that we as social media users eat. I think it's going to be like quite an eye-opening read, because I think it's going to be more than just the looking into like hashtags of like what I eat in a day. I think it's going to be really interesting, because I think that social media has probably affected the way that we as consumers like view things. I think it's going to be really exciting, and I'm really excited to read it. And also this avocado on the front cover just looks delicious, and I have an avocado downstairs that is going to be ripe at any point, be ripe for about 3 seconds, so just making me think of my avocado. 10 and double. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. It's a green building on the cover. Another green prompt, and that was a book with a building on the front cover, and my sensible brain said I could put my Read Christie pick for May, which is, I can't remember the title of it. It's a Mary Westmacott Agatha Christie though, and it does have a building on the front cover. But then my less sensible part of my brain went, but you could just read Sinister Spring, which is upside down, which has a building on the cover, because spring ends at like the beginning of June. So if I don't read this book in May, I'm gonna have to wait till next year to read it. So I'm gonna put this one on and still read my other Agatha Christie book, but I'm adding this to my TBR. This is a selection of short stories by Agatha Christie that are somewhat spring related. So I'm very excited about this. I have been meaning to read this since I got it. I pre-ordered it. I think I got it in March, and then, no, maybe I got it in February. There was a reason I didn't read it immediately after getting it, and I can only assume it was because it wasn't seasonally appropriate. So I'm going to be reading it in May. That's my plan. 3. 1 2 3. That's just a book I saw on BookTube. Roll 4. I have never landed on this square before. So when I reach my lap square, if I pass my lap square, I pick a book that I've seen on BookTube recently, generally within like the last 2 weeks or so. But I've never landed on the square, so I don't know what happens there. I assume I just pick a book that I've seen on BookTube. This is the part where I stop having any faith in my ability to finish my May TBR, because I could only find one book that I had access to that I had seen on BookTube recently, and it's also the longest book on my TBR. And it's Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This is over 1,000 pages long, and I'm fairly certain the font is, no, it's fine. I thought the font was super small. It's normal sized font. Normal sized font? It feels fine. Yeah, just over 1,000 pages. Sure, we'll get it done. And I think this book was on my TBR last year. It's on my 2023 23 books I want to read. So I really do want to read this. This book takes place during the Napoleonic War, I think. And magicians were once a thing, but they're not really anymore, apart from one guy, Mr. Norrell. I think it's Norrell. I would say Norrell. Let's go with that until I hear otherwise. And in this world, there were once magicians, but they have kind of faded away. And there's only one magician called Mr. Norrell. And he can kind of bring people back from the dead. And he seems to do that in order to scare away the French army. And at the same time as him doing all of that, there's another magician that pops up, Jonathan Strange. And these two people don't like being part of a group. They like to just be the only magician in the room. And the book, I believe, is about those two people being unable to share a skill and fighting about it, all the while with a backdrop of war. So I think it's going to be really exciting. I don't know if I'm going to get this done. I do have a few friends that have read this book, but it was so long ago that I don't really remember what they said about it. But I know I went out and bought it and I was very giddy about it and then put it on my shelf and forgot. So let's see if I can get this one read. This is like 3 books. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Available on Prime. Roll 5 was a pinked prompt, and this was a book that I could get on Prime Reading. I don't have Amazon Prime. My boyfriend has Amazon Prime, but you get some books on that, and we've linked that to my Kindle, so I get the books. And I'm going with The Tiger Came Down the Mountain by Sylvia Moreno-Garcia. In a nice contrast to my previous book, this is a teeny tiny, I don't even think it would count as a novella. I think this would be considered as a short story. According to Goodreads, it's 28 pages, so nice and small. I have not looked too far into what this book is about because it's so short that I don't want to spoil it for me. But I know this is to do with, there is a brother and sister and they are talking about folk tales, and I believe it's against a backdrop of revolution as well. So I have loved everything Sylvia Moreno-Garcia has written. I would read, if she wrote a shopping list, I'm sure I would read it and love it. So I've got absolutely no doubts that I'm gonna adore this, and I'm really glad I've got a little book on my list to combat the giant books that I've got on there as well. 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yellow, involves travel. Roll 6 was a yellow one, and that was a book that involves travel. And I don't know if I'm cheating, but it's my game, so I think if I cheat, then that's just on me. I am going with The Psychology of Time Travel by Kate Mascarenhas. This is a murder mystery book that involves time travel. There is a woman who created, with some colleagues of course, a time machine, and then we've got a flash forward 50 years and she receives a newspaper clipping of the death of somebody in the future, and her granddaughter is like, I'm gonna look into that, that looks interesting. So I'm really excited to read this. I've been told that it's a little similar to the Chronicles of St. Mary's, which I loved half of those books and I didn't love the other half. So I'm hopeful that it's similar to the half I loved. But I do love an older protagonist, so I can hope that, I know that the granddaughter is mentioned more in the blurb, but I hope that the granny gets her time to shine as well. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, another yellow, set in the future. I then have 2 extra rolls. So extra roll number 1, I have a yellow prompt, which is a book set in the future. So I'm going with Goth Girl Hollow by Anna Stevens. It has beautiful sprayed edges, that are a lovely shade of purple. So it's pretty. This is a Warhammer book, and it's a Warhammer horror, which is kind of my favourite type of Warhammer book. And this book takes place in and around a very creepy old grand home. Love a grand home. And there's a father and daughter who are going through some stuff. And they're not on the best of terms, but they have to come together along with a ragtag bunch of misfits because their homeland is under threat. And the sort of group have all come together, but they're all kind of hiding things, and then things are revealed and people are not happy. And there's a curse, there's a mystery, so I'm very much looking forward to it. I have not yet been let down by a Warhammer horror, so I'm very hopeful this is going to be a good one. And I have been promised that there's a strong female lead, because that was the the condition under which I would accept this book. So I'm looking forward to this one as well. Final roll, maybe? Yes, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Green illustrated cover. Still trying to remember what I mean by this. The last book on my May TBR was a green prompt, which was a book with an illustrated cover. And I was not sure what I meant by this the first time that I drew this prompt, but I think what I meant was a cover that has a drawing on it, as opposed to sort of a realistic picture, basically. That's what I'm going with. Yeah. So I'm going with White Cat Black Dog by Kelly Link. This is a short story collection inspired by fairy tales, and I love fairy tales, and I am very excited to read some short stories based on them. I don't think this book isn't too long either. It's just under 300 pages, which feels just about fine for 7. I think there's 7 stories in this book. So even though I've got some big old books on my list, I've got some shorter ones as well, so I think it's going to even out, although my TBR is still pretty hefty. So this is my May TBR. It's not that big. Is it that big? It's not the size, it is the size of my head, so that's probably quite big. Yeah, I'm gonna go with these. Let me know what you are planning to read in May, and please wish me luck, because this is a lot. Yeah, it's gonna be good. I'm hopeful. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.